My name is Frances Lorene McDaniel Dobbs. I was known as Blondie until I started to school in kindergarten when I was 4 years old. So I was born October the 17th, 1927 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And the post office box, the post office that they listed was Lindrith, New Mexico. It's well known now as in the oil fields, Lindrith, and up in that area. I went to kindergarten in Peralta, New Mexico, and it was a Catholic school, and me and my nephew Sam were the only Anglos. So I picked up the Spanish or the Mexican or whatever they was talking quite well the first year I was there, and Mother said she would never let me go to another school where they talked that language. Mm-hmm. They didn't teach it, they just talked it.
One of the questions I have is, can you describe the house that you grew up in the Homestead up near Lindrith?
Right. It was a log house. They had gone to the top of the divide and cut pine trees, slid them down the side of the continental divide, and after a certain amount of years, they barked all of them. They were made into a 3-room house. The kitchen part of the house was dug into a hillside, and the logs was all around it. Mm-hmm. The roof was made of small logs over the big logs, and dirt was put on it, and that was the roof for it. We had 2 doors, one into the middle room, we called it, and one into Mother and Daddy's bedroom, which was at the far end. The kitchen was the kitchen was into it at an angle, not north and south, not east and west. It was at an angle. And they did have windows, regular windows with window panes, and in each one of the house, in each one of the rooms. The kitchen had a big wood stove, and that's where my mother cooked, and it was the only heat for the whole house. But once it got warm, it stayed warm. They had what they call the 5-foot snow, the big snow. They opened the side door in the middle room, and the snow just fell in. It scared me spitless. The only way anyone could get around was on skis. The horses couldn't pull the wagons. It was just too deep everywhere. And
take it back when you were describing your house and the kitchen and stuff. What kind of things did your mama cook for you out on the homestead, and what was your favorite?
A lot of beans.
A lot of beans.
A lot of beans. We always had meat because they would butcher a beef a year. They would butcher a pig a year. There was always venison because somebody in the family always got their deer in the wintertime, a hunting season. If a duck flew by and Sam had a gun in his hand, we had duck for dinner. There was Mother and Lida both would order 100 little chickens every year, and when they grew up big enough to be fryer size, we kids chased down the roosters, and we had chicken. And I can't stand the smell of frying
chicken.
Now, I love chicken, and I love fried chicken, but just the smell of it is just unbelievable. But this is one of those things that there was always chicken. And when there was extra, my mother took her pressure cooker and her jars, and she would can it, and it was just as good as any canned meat you ever had. But the beef was never canned. It was always eaten. They would leave it outside covered and everything, and it would stay frozen, and they would let it thaw enough that they could cut pieces off of it. And of course they would cut the pieces up. There would be the rump, and there would be these other pieces, and they would put them in bags and hang them in the trees, and they were always available. The pigs, they took the fat from the pigs. They'd render it out. Mother used the fat from the pigs to make lye soap to do her laundry with. Don't ask me how she did it. All I know is it was lye soap. And they would smoke the hams. They would cut up the bacon, slice it up, and they would put it in this oil from the pig, and some of it was salted down, they had barrels full. There was always meat of some kind to eat. And people talk about the Depression. I didn't know there was such thing. I really didn't. Because my mother went out and she did her garden every year. And there was a reservoir, made above her garden spot. And there was a pipe put in it from the bottom down to, all she had to do is turn something and she could water her whole garden from that reservoir. And of course, some of her favorite foods were turnips and beets and what are the name of those?
Parsnips.
Yes.
She loved parsnips. Anything that tasted like a turnip, she seemed to really like.
Anyway, this is one of those things. And of course, in the summertime, we always had green beans. And she always raised sweet corn. She would not plant any popcorn. We were not going to eat popcorn. We had our cows, we had the separator, and we always had butter and buttermilk and sweet milk, and buttermilk's the only one I ever learned to like. I never did like the sweet milk. I still don't care for it. Anyway, that's the story of my life.
That's the story of your life.
And I am happier now than I've ever been in my life. My first and foremost responsibility is my own well-being. I'm getting right now selfish about taking care of me.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm learning a lot.
Take care of that.
So, is there anything else? I don't